What is initiation? What is culture? What skills and tools do we need during a time of transition? This is Darren Silver, and welcome to The Return.
Welcome, everyone. This is Darren Silver with the Return podcast and welcoming dear brother here, Kaalekahi. I got it, bro.
You did it.
And
Good recovery.
really grateful to have him here on this podcast and to hear his voice. He's a very dear brother. And how you doing today, Kale?
Oh, I'm doing excellent, man. I'm glad we could drop in this way. I've been waiting for this day because you and I have been having so many good conversations just on the phone and in person. And I just feel like, oh, this is so appropriate. I had to create this space now.
Nice,
So
man.
prayers up.
Nice, man. Nice. Yeah, super grateful. And yeah, just thinking about all those conversations. Kale and I met 4 years ago, 5 years ago, something like
Yeah,
this.
it's been a while now.
Yeah, out there in Southern California at a men's gathering, Sacred Sons gathering, and around the fire. And over the years, we've met around the fire many times and had many conversations. And yeah, Kale, just for the listeners, like, could you just share a little bit about where you come from and a little bit about your path that brings you here to this moment? Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good, bro. It's interesting, being where I'm at now, this stepping into fatherhood, parenthood, having my mother pass away during the summer, having some rocky relationships and relating, things like that. And, growing up, my life was, kind of spent really with my mom, and my grandparents and then my siblings and things. But there wasn't much of a understanding of like cultural tradition. Many things that I had learned growing up was like, oh, this is just what it means to be Hawaiian. And it wasn't ever explained to me as to like how we got here, as a people, and why do we still see the world in this way, and how are we functioning, in the modernity of our times. So that wasn't ever given to me. And so after I graduated from high school, I sought it out. I sought out what my ancestors were seeking. And I joined a cultural school, which we call halal. And then that put me on the path to understand ceremony, prayer, and ritual. And it also brought me into a depth of knowing myself in my indigeneity, not just as something that, I wear, like as a costume or something, but like the depth of belonging that comes when we do that, or when I chose to do that. And then it brought me to the path of my other ancestral connections, which was, Dakota lineages, and then also some of the Celtic that I got to learn, and some of the Southeast Asian of my Ilocano ancestry. And so these different lineages I explored with different teachers and mentors. So I'm just so grateful that as I was searching, the right ones, I can say that, the right ones came into my life right on time. And so they taught me some very valuable lessons. And I didn't know how valuable they were at the time that it was happening. I just thought, I was like, okay, cool. I'm younger. I'm just going to go do and humble myself to it all and carry the bundle and move in this way, hold rocks, stones, and wood, and make ropes and get the ava ready. You know how it goes. Get the fire started. Hey, boy, you come over here. Listen. Oh, okay. And then it was just, a deeper learning of kind of what I was missing growing up, which was, the rites of passage to receive, the initiate. Because those initiations that happened without the village, And so that's kind of been my journey of where's the village? What is this thing we call indigeneity? What does belonging look like? What is the grieving and the praising that happens when we go on that path? And so it brought me here. And I can say, it brought me ready to have those conversations with you because you too were on your path.
Yeah.
and you shared that with me. And if I didn't go there the way that I did, I don't think I would have been able to receive you, Darren.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I'm grateful for that. Yeah, it's kind of what brought me here, man.
Yeah. Yeah, man. There's certainly a lot of overlap in our interests and kind of the callings that we've felt. Um, I don't know where I picked this up. I picked it up somewhere along the way. I didn't come up with it. I think it was Michael Meade. He
Mm,
said, you know, we're only to go, we're only able to go as far into the future as we are able to go back into the past.
ooh, yeah, yeah.
And, you know,
Hmm.
how I've taken that is there's a lot of initiatives, a lot of think tanks, there's a lot of visioning that takes place in modernity, um,
Hmm.
that is an absence of knowing where we came from and understanding those patterns. And there's always a part of me that cringes a little bit when I hear these visions of the future and I go, wow, that's like that's speaking in the absence of actually being here,
Mm,
being where you live, being in the ecology of relationships that are around you. Um, and just hearing your story and growing up, just very briefly what you shared, that returning back. Wait a second. What are these rituals? Wait a second. What is my culture? What are the lineages I carry, genetically and otherwise?
hmm.
Because we're in this radical time of some of the lineages we carry actually aren't genetic lineages.
Right,
Um,
right.
so, anyways, just really appreciating and you sharing a bit about that. Um,
Hmm.
and as I was prepping for this call, I began to think about culture a lot. Well,
Wow.
yeah, where do we go? What is culture to Kale? What is the revivification, the reimagining of culture? And then you know, what is it about looking forward that also is really important to have that uninterrupted braid to
Mm,
all the way back to the loving ancestral pool of ones that stand behind us.
hmm.
And going deep pretty quick.
Yeah. You said pool. You said pool. So here we are. Yeah, we're in the pool.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear what is an alive living culture to you? Yeah, what are the
Yeah,
elements? What are
brother.
the components that make up a culture?
You know, that's it's a beautiful question, man, and it's great. I'm glad we're going to the deep end of the pool. First off, and I think I can kind of approach it too by looking at kind of what you had said, which was, um, the patterns, right? The patterns of modernity
Mm,
and how that shows up. And I'm not one to cast out things because I just don't like how they sound. Many times people will do such things. They'll get rid of it for something that's perceived as better or greater, or there's this other way that is so much more than what we've been given. And in some instances, yeah, we could say that. But let's just say, like, on the surface of modernity, about technology driven, industrialization, individualism, progress for progress sake, and the globalization of what they call that, homogenization,
right.
in such ways. So it sets up a certain cultural habit, in the people. It pulls them away from the sensory and the relational reality of being part of the web of life that, many of our loving ancestors, as you said, have been really wanting to bring that, dream and that vision forward. And maybe their time was cut off too soon, or maybe some of those roots that are still there, we haven't dug deep enough, to
Mm,
really reveal them or to nurture them. So in that absence, of actually being here in that modernity, it's not that I perceive the culture of indigenous people as being perfect or being something that is better. I see it as there's certain presences and embodiments and efficiencies that kind of gives us a different conversation between consumption and community, for example.
mm,
When things get flattened, where is the Where's the peak of the drum sound? You know, when does it hit? What are these ecologies of relationships of relating that those loving ancestors were so, immersed in land, ocean, sky, plant, animal, mineral, and ethereal, non-human kin? And what does that community, that understanding of that community do for us as the human being, as part of a living, breathing species that should contribute, to such a thing as we call ecology, right? That study of the relationships. So the question is beautiful because when I look at, certain, like, I guess you would say the hallmarks, of what makes a culture alive and living, a big part of it is the language. It kind of starts and ends with the language. Is the language carrying this worldview? Is the story encoded with values and cosmologies, creation stories, histories, and relationships that bring about something that's living, like a bacterial growth or even like a mold. Yeah. Like sometimes we perceive mold as like, oh, disgusting, gross. We need to sanitize the thing. But you can have that living culture of that mold actually take over a food stuff, right? Say like a fish and it will cover up, but it's not necessarily decaying, right? It's not rotting. It's actually just a protective layer that allows some culture to go in. And so then when you clear that out and you cut it up and you give it a little cooking, you have a different flavor, that comes from doing that. It's just like, this is a flavor I didn't know, but it's so ancient because I chose not to sanitize the thing and clear it out, right? So we can evolve, through the forgetting too of what those tastes are by re-alivening them. So that's one thing. And I also believe, the ritual and the ceremony of embodied practices that can mark the transitions, of human life from one stage to the next, just like puberty, right? That's an initiation. It happens. It's biological. But what we're missing is the rite of passage, which is the community coming together to acknowledge the initiates, boys and girls into, manhood, womanhood, and eventually parenthood. And what does that cycle look like? And can we celebrate those things together while also acknowledging like, hey, there's different levels of commitments now. What can you be responsible for? Because a lot of that too requires a death, you know, not just a death of the child, but like a death of those patterns, right? In modernity, I see it as being still holding on to that, right? Still holding on to those immaturities, not allowing to be seasoned, still wanting to relegate ourselves to this obsession with virtue and youth. And it misplaces us into our adulthood because we cannot fully express ourselves because we've kind of been stunted. Yeah. Things have been hindered in such a way because the rites of passage are missing. And then also relationship, stewarding, maybe not the best word, but life tending, can say. Can that be the spine or the backbone of our foundation? That our lands are not just backdrops or, just something claimed by our ancestors, but is also received to us too in this present time through our genetic, not that's the most important thing, but there is a genetic trace that goes of migratory people.
Sure.
And can we share in that understanding these different practices and skills? And if we do that, right, the behavior will show up, and then therefore it needs to be coordinated along the ethics and values that come through with reciprocity and kinship and respect for multi-generational communal ways of being, especially when it comes around healing. So this is a deeply lived thing that, not everyone, in our modern society is ready for, but they are a desperate need, I believe, for remembrance.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think about the confrontation with death and the little death, if you will. Um, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and I went to a ceremony this weekend, and they said, "How was it?" And I said, "Well, it was a death sentence." It just obliterated me. um, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of mythologists and mystics that have said something to the effect of, die many times before you die.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
And yeah, that really touched me when you talked about those life stages. Um, and a willingness to let go of something before we can step into the next in a big sense, identity. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Or role. or frame of reference of which we're relating to the world. Yeah. In Hawaii, are some of those initiations intact and still being practiced?
Yeah, good question, brother. There's a resurgence of those coming back. There is a time, which this was a big one, was back in the 70s. There was the hokulea. So the navigation tradition had come back. And this had come from a man named Maupiailu, comes from Satawal and Micronesia. And so he was able to be part of the genealogy that remained intact on those islands. And so he was faced with the younger generations not really wanting to participate in that way, in that tradition. They wanted to go to modernity, of course, as the story goes. So when the Hawaiian people were awakening to their culture and the understanding of their own selves, they called upon him and, like, I think a couple other navigators, but he was the one that really showed up. And so when the Hokulea came around, there was already adult men. This wasn't younger kids. He wasn't training kids. He was training adult men and bringing them through rites of passage and initiations to become, ho'okele, which is like a word, one of the words for navigator. And so that's what brought about like a renaissance, really, for things to come back, like hula, the dance, the chant, the oli, and all these different things. And so once that invigorated, then you started to see the martial arts come online, lua, and then the different genealogies start to peek up, right, from the darkness, and like push their head up and like start to look around. And so they wanted to bring the ancient rites of passages to the kids, right? So it's been a steady build, but again, not everybody is on par or on track for that thing. Hawaiian people, as we are, we all have different attitudes to it. Some of us are more Christian, some of us are more traditional, some of us are kind of in between. And so we need to understand that the next generation coming is, how do we prepare them?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And so one of the, so one
Yeah.
of the rituals is like bringing the boy to man, and women, to womanhood, is like nestling in for, 4 days straight of what it means just to be around adults and be put through, not only physical exertion, but also deeply spiritual, sitting with yourself, understanding how we work with these different tools, right? Whether it be stone making, woodworking, cordage making, working with different plants, la'au, lapa'au. And so those kinds of initiations are coming back. And with the invigoration of the language, which kind of brings me back, with immersion schools, their first language becomes Hawaiian.
Yeah.
And they learn English along the way. And so then that's what helps kind of give the pattern and the sequence to fulfill itself when these small kids, these keiki, come into their ka'imua, ka'imu, which is like they kind of get heated, right? And imu is like an underground oven, where we cook our food. And so like the child needs to be cooked up, right? So that outside of the pit comes the man or the woman. And so, yeah, those are coming back. And it's beautiful to see.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that this isn't specific to Hawaiian youth. I've never worked with Hawaiian youth, but in my experience working with youth, two things come up. One is either a complete lack of interest,
Yeah.
or two, an interest but an enormous amount of resistance. And as a guide, sometimes very much feeling inadequate to quote unquote initiate someone into adulthood. Because I'm always like, initiated into what? Like, what are they being initiated into? But it's always felt like I've had to be really clever to get them to see the value of doing something. And I can get it. Looking at the world today, it's like, you want me to participate in this? You want me to be, a contributing factor to all that's going on in the world? I'd rather just completely check out. I experience that a lot. It's either like a despondency or just resistance. And so I don't know how much you're working with youth or have worked with youth, but I'm curious if you've run into that, and how, in your experience, you found a way to really see the value.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm.
as a guide, and also just bring it in as soon to be father. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's interesting because I relate, a lot of times with initiatory practices that I've been involved in, I was always in support of. And most of the time that I do have teenagers coming, they're boys. So I haven't really worked, with the girls. But what I see within the boys, is this strong sense of like needing to do it on my own. I have
Yeah.
to figure it out on my own.
Hmm.
And it's that individualism that comes up. They're saying like, I see you, uncle, I appreciate you, what you're doing, but I'm not really fully in because one, you're just another man, and they haven't been there for me. So why should I trust you? And then two, this thing that I'm moving towards, is because my parents are telling me it's good for me. I want to make my own choices,
Right.
you know. So the resistance is there, and so the route that I've had to take was to be, yeah, I'm uncle, but I'm also, here, as a man that was in your same position. I relate to you very much so, and sharing more of my story of not having the rites of passage and initiations when I really needed them, and sharing my story of what it was like, to grow up from a teenager into young adulthood and how that affected my life. Just being more involved with, partying and drugs and alcohol and all around my peers and nobody else, older than me that could really see me for who I am, who I really was at that time, which is just, um, a boy that had a lot of anger, clenched fists, running around, not knowing how to wield the thing, having a difficult time with the clenching. Couldn't you just open up my hand to actually receive, some good words from those that really cared? And so when I put that first, in the forefront, then the boys can start to see like, oh, okay, you know, he is like me, but also I don't want to be like him. And that was probably one of the greatest gifts too, in that way is like, oh wow, I don't want to be like him, so I better, see what this is
Yeah.
and bring myself to it. And knowing too that it's uncomfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable. It might be painful. There might be suffering involved. And a lot of these boys, they're so quick to go towards that thing. Like, oh, it's suffering. Oh, I gotta like go to the depth and the dark and be in that. So there's something, within the culture of modernity that equates, success or achievement as something to suffer for. And so I try to translate that for them. It's like, it's not about the suffering. It's not about how much pain you can endure. It's what you're willing to humble yourself in front of that's bigger than you and how you allow it to move through you. So being out there for a time with no food and water, you know, really awakens them. I've had boys tell me some amazing messages, even to the level of like, I see my father so differently now. I see my mother so differently now. I kind of understand what they were trying to do, and recognizing how myself at this young age still want them around. Like I still love them.
Right.
And I think that's a big point, a big step in the progress of the mentality around our relationships when we're young, is that we need to, in order for us to fully live and be who we want to be, we got to get rid of everything that's preventing it.
Right. Right.
And it's like, maybe that's not the case.
Mhm.
Well,
Mhm. Yeah. When I think about my adolescence, and young adulthood, um, there was a huge desire to engage with mystery,
hmm
to engage with the unknown, that that felt dangerous. Something
mm
that was edgy, something that brought me into a dance with mystery and danger. And um, the struggle is it was never culturally held. There was no one older than me. That's not
mm
entirely true. There was, people a couple years
They're
older
around.
than me. Yeah, but there
Yeah.
wasn't quote unquote elders really giving me
mm
some guidance. to navigate unknown and mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when I finally did find it, it's really interesting, you know, in my community here in Colorado, they poke at me and make fun of me sometimes. They say, Darren, you're vague but particular.
Mm. That's a good one.
Can you relate to that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
very much.
do the fire like this. Oh wait, no, not quite like that, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, and I've thought about that a lot. Like, wow, when I first learned how to tend fire in a sacred way, the instructions I got, like there was a deep knowing that was
Mm.
present, but there was enough space for me to find my way in it.
Mm. Yeah,
There was enough space for me to bruise up my knuckles enough.
for sure.
And a consequence of that was like, wow, I'm being invited to participate in something bigger.
Hmm.
And that in and of itself, as a young man, like, whoa, what I'm doing is influencing more than just me.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't realize that till a decade later. Wow, that's what that did for me.
Hmm.
Wow, I was participating in something bigger, um, that fulfilled this desire for mystery, um,
Mm.
and danger and response. I could mess this up. Well, I have to do this well. There's a whole group of people depending upon me.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, well, you're speaking on it, brother, is so good because it just, yeah, just being a part of something so big and that people rely on you and having that kind of sense of responsibility, that is true. It's just real. It's not a concept. You know, people really need young men to step into that ceremony of their life, and that's something you shared with me. It's like how do we nudge them towards stepping into the ceremony of their life, into that circle?
Yeah.
And we do that by connection, not correction, right? You know, they want to feel that connection before they get course corrected. You know, they want to see the aliveness, right? And I think that's part of the pain and the suffering, you know, thing is it's aliveness. They want to feel that aliveness. And how do we, you know, as men in the positions and the roles that we play now for community to be of service, such things in our responsibility and teachings is to show them, right? Not tell them. And how do we help them name the pain clearly, right? Because we can acknowledge the disillusionment that happens. Because I've been there, and the anxiety, the loneliness of what it feels like to have to achieve. Because I got to get to this certain place in my life where I've got the cars, I got the money, I got the women, I got all these things. And now my life is complete. Then I can actually do the spiritual work. Now I can actually be the guy, because I feel like materially I'm the guy. And so I believe my role in that is to show them, hey, there's other ways, there's other knowledges, there's another creation story and a cosmology that you can be a part of that's not dogmatic. It's just a living possibility. And can that story that I'm showing to you and you can connect with, now can you imagine the older ones that have been around that you didn't really see? Can you see them more clearly with your ability to take on the responsibility of others and what that looks like now? That maybe they too had the same anxieties and pressures from this society. And maybe they too have lost some other sensory experience that they haven't really rebodied, again, because things were missing. So yeah, man, I feel that deeply with what you're saying, very vague but particular, you know. It's kind of how it needs to work, I believe. Like, hey, I'm not going to tell you exactly how to set this fire up, but I got a couple pieces. And if they go and do it, I'm like, oh, hey, what about this? Like, let's look at it this way. Then they're like, oh, well, how do you want to do it? I'm like, ask me a question. Invite the question, brother.
Exactly.
Ask me a question.
Yeah.
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 Where's the question, my brother?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it works to invite them there. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's coming up for you?
Well, as you know, I've one of the lineages that I really hold is the Tracker School and
Mm-hmm.
Tom Brown and I took my first course there
Tom Brown.
when I was 20, and most of the class is physical skills, shelter, water, fire, food, um, pottery, flint knapping, hide working. It's real physical, that standard class. And then the last couple days, Tom gets more into the spiritual stuff. Um, and it just like slammed me when he went there. Um, it felt like he was speaking directly to me. Um, he was speaking to the whole class, but that like started vibrating inside of me. And he said a few things, like, what's your vision?
Mm.
And are you willing to give up your dreams to follow a vision? Um,
Oof.
you know, and it probably took me 15 years to realize that a dream only has to do with me, but a vision has to do with the whole of life.
Yeah.
You know, and and so that really began my quest. But what made me think of Tom was, this is generally speaking about that lineage, because there's other teachers in that lineage that have shared the same thing with me. It's like, are you willing to give up answers for awareness?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
You know, um, and that circles back to you saying, like, what's the question?
Mm-hmm.
What's the question? And can we ask a question that isn't necessarily about giving us an answer, but more about giving us awareness?
Yeah.
Because awareness is moving, and it's completely
Mm-hmm.
subject to context.
Yeah.
You know, um,
Mm-hmm.
so I was just feeling into that, and it's challenging these days. When I do my work, I sometimes bring up Google consciousness.
Oh yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
like how many how many tail feathers does a wren have, a canyon wren? And then I look it up, and man, I forget that shit in no time. It's
Yeah.
gone. Um, whereas if I ask a whole lot of questions of where do the wrens like to make nests, and then I follow that and I
Uh-huh.
sit and I watch, and then what do they like to eat, and then I go there. Where do they feed? Then it's this process of increased awareness, and then maybe just for a moment I'll get a flash of how many tail feathers it has when it's cleaning them. Um,
Right.
and then the
Beautiful.
quote unquote answer is resting inside of a much greater living story.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's actually memory to it.
Yes.
Like when something is, for me at least, and I would say the indigenous soul, when it's sitting
Mm-hmm.
outside of relationships, then it actually doesn't register as a memory in us. Like the most vivid memories are involve relationship, and some, like, a good story of a memory is like people could tell you where the sun was, you know,
Oh.
which way the breeze was coming from, who was there. And
Mm-hmm.
um, so I know I'm touching on a lot of things around
No, it's
answers and
okay.
awareness, and
Mm-hmm.
memory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Some of the people that I know that have the best memories, quote unquote, are illiterate, can't read.
Right?
It's like, what's up with that? But they remember everything. So I don't know, I'm touching on a lot of things, but this is what you've inspired hearing you talk.
Mm. Yeah, man. It goes right back to you. Um, just the part too. I'm gonna get to the other ones as well, but like just that part where you're talking about working with the Tracking School, Tom Brown, and bless him, man.
Yeah, blessings.
So I thank you for saying his name. Because yeah, what a great teacher. I don't know how many thousands of people he's taught, but to have someone like you, part of that lineage, it's like, oh, okay, the work continues.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so in Hawaiian, we have a saying, it's a pretty popular saying, it's makahana kaike, which in one way can mean in the doing, there is knowledge,
Mm.
right? So when we do the things, the knowledge comes. So it just kind of addresses like the root of the pathway for this living, breathing culture that we're talking about. Is like knowledge is embodied through the practices that we have with living relationships, plant, animal, mineral, and ethereal, once again, right? Not just the abstract modern education where it's like intellectual knowing, facts and concepts and, digital information, Google consciousness stuff, but the initiation towards is that transformation of the belonging, all of it, right? It can be learned through the actions and the behavior. And it requires the risk, requires the sweat, requires the failure, the creation, for the presence. And one of my teachers would always say, you don't punish the baby for learning to walk, do you? You celebrate them, you keep teaching them again. And they'll walk in their time.
I love
Because
that.
that's part of their rebodying. Yeah. And so
Yeah.
for the route is not so much the lecture, right? But for them to feel it in their bones. Whether they, can you chant? Can you build? Can you farm? Can you surf? Can you hunt? Can you weave? Can you fish? Can you plant? Can you clean? Can you grieve? Can you love? Can you, with the starting of that, knowledge, and you don't have to be convinced. The work does it for you, or in the sense, in our roles, right? It does it for them.
Right.
And so you can't bypass resistance by intellectualizing it,
Right.
because that's what we do, right? And like you said, the most memorable, the people with the most capacity for memory are the ones that are, quite illiterate. I mean, they might be able to read something, but then if you ask them to read it aloud, they're probably going to have a couple skips here and there,
Yeah.
and mispronunciations. But the memory is full, and so that's the beauty of Makahanaka Ike, because Ike is actually vision.
Wow.
It's not just knowledge. So when we talk about Ike Kupuna, we're saying the vision of our ancestors. Makahanaka Ike, in the doing and the work, gives you vision. And so, it's not like we're giving them something to do, it's something that they can learn to believe in. They'll believe in it because that learning is happening through the relational practice.
Yeah.
So yeah, collaboration with, I feel, with a lot of people who talk about shamanism, this, shaman, I'm medicine person. I'm like, okay, cool. Nice title. Like, great. But what about the things that actually have always the power in the medicine? It's not us.
Yeah.
It's not us. It never was. It's getting dirty in the lo'i patch, watching the water come in and out, and how does it move? What is the nutrient density of such things, scientific words. But then how do we also see ourselves in that cycle with the winds that are going on where you're at, right? Being in the wind is tough, man. Especially when it's hot, windy and cold. It's like, hold on a second. But what is this container of knowledge?
Yeah.
That's happening?
Yeah.
And like I said, you can't bypass the resistance. It's there. It's in the context, like you were saying. This is the context of the learning.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just relating to you, my brother. It's powerful stuff right here.
Man,
Powerful.
you like you brought this up when you were first talking about belonging. And one way to look at quote unquote a shaman is a shaman is an anomaly of a culture that exists. It's the person that is at the hut at the edge of the village. And where I go with it is like, well, where the hell's the village? Like if a shaman's an anomaly of the village, where's the village to begin with? And there's a lot of, and bless them, but bless this, blessings. I don't want to sound cynical, but I am a little cynical, but whatever. It's like,
it's appropriate at times.
It's like if I can understand the desire to quote unquote be a shaman because people love people, and if somebody's suffering, we care. People care about each other. But perhaps we're in a time of belonging is actually the medicine that we need. Perhaps being a true human, whatever that means. There's a lot of, we can explore that, but perhaps that's the route we need to go, more than being an anomaly, more than being a one-off, because it can real quickly go off into individualism. It can really quickly look like modernity. Just doing my own thing, and I don't follow any rules, and it's this, that, and the other thing. Another perspective, I love this. I picked this up from Martin Prechtel. He said, man, a shaman's at the edge of the village because he causes too much trouble inside the village.
Yeah, exactly. And look what we got now. No, I was kidding.
It ain't because he or she is holy. It's because they're a pain in the ass, you know? Get them
Yeah,
out of here.
exactly.
Yeah. So,
Oh,
yeah.
that's great.
Yeah. Well, thinking about memory, just to kind of go in a little bit of a different direction. When I think about a lot of quote unquote nomadic cultures or moving peoples, I think it's really easy to interpret that as like every day was a novelty. Uh, every season was a novelty. Um, and from my research, I don't actually think that was true. I think it was more cyclical. That there was places and points throughout the year that they traveled,
Mm-hmm.
and also sometimes just where sustenance was. Um, but also these places that then became um, places of celebration, places of community, places of reunification with other peoples, um, but also ceremony and also ritual. And so where I'm headed is this kind of big area of like, how is memory held in place? Actually, like in the landscape. Yeah. And I'm curious with, what you've learned and what you've experienced, and perhaps if you're willing, in Hawaiian culture, is there story, if you will, that's held in place that the people go to remember what I would say the original instructions of being human.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, well, yeah, well, the
Sorry, it's just,
nomadic.
laying it
No,
all
no,
out.
no. I love it, bro. And it's like, okay, I gotta take a deep breath in. Okay, boy, and this is good, right? Because it's like I love it, and it speaks to so much, but it also speaks to what's there, what's actually there, and
Yeah.
it's never too much. It's right there, and if you can't see the forest for the trees, right, kind of thing. The forest shouldn't be this immensity that you have to overcome, and somehow you can make it better by chopping down more trees. Say, no, no. How can you actually see the tree, appreciate for what they're doing and what that ecology exists in, and what is that place? What is the story here? And not that we have to carry on the story of those who were there first. That's not what I mean. Because they received that story from something ancient that was already there and continues to reside in there.
Uh,
So can we keep places, in their sacredness? Can we have movement without disconnection?
right.
Can we have deep insights, right? While still having the foresight of our own actions, of our consequences, our behavior. And so in Hawaii, we have a word called wahipana. And wahipana is like a storied place, where you go. And like pana means like a heartbeat, right? Like, what is the heartbeat of this place, and how does it translate into your own heart? So that's the beauty of nomadic cultures as we see them now, because we're so sedentary. Yeah, we're all so civilized, and we're so progressive, right? We're like, you know, we're gonna build things that last forever, And it's almost like we got our freedom kind of skewed. We didn't take the responsibility of the true inheritance of being free. So then we perceive from our modern lenses that, this way of life, oh, how novel, how cute, how quaint, what a good hobby, that you can actually move upon the land in this way or travel the ocean in such a way that, like, oh yeah, you can just live and survive. That's great. However, advancement and intelligence, real culture is rooted in staying in one place, right? Rooted down. And maybe rooted is not the right word, but like cementing it, how do I cement my legacy? Right. And so I love that you bring up the nomadic of the migratory people, because we've all come from that. Settler life is not default human engagement. True human is actually understanding how long we can be in a place that we love so much that even our own presence has an impact. Call it foot traffic, if you will. Call it just being there for too long. It's like the land needs to regenerate too. So how do we restore the land in order to restore ourselves? That's a big question. Right. And maybe the nomadicism, as trendy as it might look at from the outside, is actually a living practice of that freedom with responsibility that go hand in hand. And maybe these network of places, as we go, we keep dropping the song line of remembrance for those that come after. Not that we need to carve our name into the trees, or we need to set up, what they call those things, cairns, all around the landscape to say, we were here. Like, no, we carry the song, we carry the energy, we carry the sacredness of what's been, and we share the story. Not to say, hey, come and tourist this place. You say, hey, this is a storied place that requires some reverence from you, because it's going to displace you from your settlerist understanding of the world. And maybe a little bit of that gene of the nomadic way, or the migratory person, can come alive in you. It's something like, I could put it to a more specific example. So a lot of these places that were held sacred to the people here, right, as we call Kanaka Maoli, the indigenous people here, they've been paved over, and resorts are on.
Yeah, you brought me to some
Yeah.
of those places when I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
parking lot, man,
Mhm.
of like
Parking lot.
I don't know, some kind of strip mall.
Yeah,
Yeah, you brought me.
exactly.
Yeah, I remember.
And then they have little pieces, of recognition, that does not suit well. But it's like, this is where we've interned the bones of the ancestors in these little, small little lots that are gated. And then they have like a big, like, stone monument on there with a plaque that says number, 3374-55 for the records. This is where they're at, right? So that in itself is a clear sign that we've lost our connection to place.
Right.
We lost our connection to the name, and to the story, and to the understanding of the movement of ourselves. And so what do we do with all of that? Yeah, well, we have to keep going on when we can't go on no more, but not as a way to strive harder or to break ourselves, but to say, like, look, if this is happening in my awareness now, what other storied places are there that I can invigorate this channel still? How can I put little pieces of myself scattered, like seeds to the wind? Yeah, that will grow. Because once it grows there, it will grow in me. So these storied places, as I've come to understand them, comes with a quality, a reciprocity of the grieving. Grieve what's been lost, grieve what's gone, not to put you in depression or to sorrow, but to help you understand yourself in this tracking that's been going on of the the constant eating, the wetiko, yeah, the wetiko that is there. So grieving is not per se like the only remedy, the only medicine, but it's a good one, especially for people who've lost their time and place and their stories. Grieve what's been gone, and then maybe from that place, Martin Pertel talks a lot about this too. The culture of the indigenous soul can actually take place, right? Take their place amongst the other ones, not casting anyone out, just make sure that they have a seat at the table.
Right.
So that's kind of how I see it. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just in a I'm curious how you would talk about the indigenous soul, meaning to ask you how you define the indigenous soul it's not quite appropriate, but like, what are the edges of the indigenous soul for people? They go, wow, yeah, I can recognize that part of me. Yeah.
You know, that's a good one.
Mm.
um, maybe I could say it like this. Like, I have my nephew. He's living with me. He's 19 years old.
Oh, wow.
He had his birthday. Yeah,
Wow, man.
he's been with me for a while now, about 6 months.
Okay.
Um,
That's
yeah,
good
and
practice.
this is,
Yeah.
oh man, yeah, it is. It's such good practice. Like, oh, I got the teenager in the house before I have the baby, right? So it's getting ready. But the thing with him is that he's man, he's just so aware. He's so conscious. He's so mindful. He's so caring, and he's strong. He likes to fight. He wants to train MMA. Um, for a young man such as himself, I'm blessed,
Wow.
to have him in the home, and
Yeah.
his brain's still maturing, so the details of like shared life is a little off for him, but he's learning along the way, right? It's like, hey, I just remind him, hey, don't forget, do the dishes before you go sleep, huh? Don't leave them in the sink. Little things like that. But what's amazing with him is that he's been learning with me, right? And I've been teaching him along the way, subtly, different things. He'll see me do lodge. He'll see me go out into the land. He'll see me lead tours. You'll see me do weddings. He'll be there for all of it. So he gets to witness,
Yeah.
right? Like what that is. Now he has a 40-hour work week, right? He's got a job. And so he feels really good about it because now he can provide, right? He's like, oh, I want to take you and Auntie out to dinner. I want to, do all these other things with you and for you. I'm like, okay, brother, well, let's start with doing the laundry. And then we could talk about dinner. You know what I mean? So back to the story is that he had this moment, and we had a long talk about it when he came home, but he had this moment where he was riding his bike back and he's looking out towards the sunset out here, south side, Kihei, Maui. And he's asking himself, are they listening to me? Ancestors, do they talk to me? Like, where do they go? Where did their spirit go? Where did their soul go now that they're gone? Where is it? And then he's telling me this story and I'm listening. And I'm like, okay. He's like, so what do you think, Uncle? And I'm like, well, why did you stop? Oh, well, because I was thinking this question. I was like, well, where'd the question come from? And he's like, my mind? I'm like, are you sure? He's like, yeah, well, I'm thinking the thoughts. I'm like, yeah, that's what you do. But that's you thinking the thoughts. But you actually stopped. So there was an action there that prompted you. So what did you do? He's like, well, I got off my bike and I just watched the sunset. And I sat there with the ocean and the sun. And then I came back home. I was like, so what makes you think, right, since you're thinking all the thoughts, that ancestors aren't speaking to you or they're not listening to you? He's like, I don't know. What do you mean? I'm like, brother, they told you to stop. They told you to ask the question, and they told you to look at the sunset. And they told you the message that you received, which was what? He's like, oh, I just felt like everything's going to be okay, that I'm exactly where I need to be. I'm like, there. That's the indigenous soul. It's a way of perceiving and relating, not so much thinking. Knowing that you're not separate from them or this land or these waters or these winds or those stars or those ancestors, the loving ones, and even the ones that didn't dream of you because they were busy dreaming about themselves. Remembering that the timeline is cyclical, not linear. You're 19 years old. Let the indigenous soul speak. When the mind comes in, understand that's just part of you bringing forward yourself into this web of kinship that extends beyond you and I. There's something deeper there, and it's unseen. Good. Because it doesn't need to be seen, because you're already looking at it. You're looking down there in the south towards the west where the sun is setting. You are bound by that transition. No matter what, for the rest of your days, you will be bound by the sunrise and the sunsets and the phases of the moon and the constellations as they move throughout the sky. You will be bound by them, not strictly, but it's in your blood. And the indigeneity will show up. It's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, man. When you use the word perceiving, there was a couple things that happened for me. One was, teaching your nephew how to listen and pay attention and to honor. I think one thing about uncles or elders or aunties is that they see in us and they see generally what we can't yet. They see in us what we can't yet see about ourselves. And they can see, in relationships that we can't yet see, that we are braiding in our movement. And I just hear, man, like how you were tending those for your nephew. And there's a receiving and in perceiving. One way I've worked with perception is, and I love language and I love words and I love kind of throwing riddles in between them all. And,
Yeah.
That perception occurs when what we're seeing is seeing us.
Yeah.
And, there's times like when I or somebody I'm working with is walking through a forest or hanging out on a hillside or sitting by the creek. And there's a moment when it's like, whoa, that tree changed. It called me out.
Yeah.
It called me out. And that's that moment where I would say real perception occurs, when what you're seeing is seeing you, and there's a moment of contact and dialogue that takes place.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it sounds like that happens in your net. Like when the sunset was happening, there was a dialogue, there was an exchange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
But simply, man, it's
Yeah.
like the ability to receive where
Mm-hmm.
we are. And that is a skill.
It
And
is.
it requires skills and tools to be open,
Oh.
to
Oh.
to receive. And I'm under the influence of the idea that the earth and creation is always speaking to us. Yeah. It's what question are we holding?
Yeah.
And is there enough surrender in our question that we can receive?
Mm-hmm.
Is there enough surrender? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we can get so focused on something and we forget the surrender part, as like
Yeah.
things have to get really loud or we get hit on the head with our own stupidity,
Yeah. Yep. Building up the wall and smacking our head against it. Like, oh yeah, this is here. Yes, it's there. Uh-huh.
So Kale, what are you working on these days? What are some projects you're up
Oh
to?
yeah, man. Yeah, well, I've been really putting a lot of energy towards my online community. I call it Now, New Old Way. And yeah, it's really just a space for men and women to come together so that they can share these kinds of things that we talk about. Exactly this kind of conversation and the conversations that we're having. And it's to help enliven that connection for each and every person so that they don't just like better themselves. There's a quality to it of like, self-improvement and personal development, but the route is community, right? And how do we find that common unity within community? And what does it actually look like to have these conversations? We're talking about cycles, we're talking about nature, we're also talking about the human soul and what has happened because of the disconnect. And what are the ways, not just actionable steps on how to cure ourselves, but to actually sit with it, right? And not needing to lay claim on this indigeneity as an identity, right? So small parts, right? Decolonization, re-indigenization. Okay, cool, good. Let's put that on the shelf too. We can look at it and bring it out when it's needed, but let's really talk about the challenge of our times, right? And what it means to be in relationship with all the different aspects of ourselves, and what do we do with it, right? So it's not just head-based knowledge. We're tapping into, you know, everyone contributing to something like a container, so that all these many voices, which is like kind of the inheritance of the word halau in Hawaiian, which is a cultural school. Ha means the breath or the exhale that comes out, and lau means leaves. So it's the breath of many leaves breathing together that this kind of way shows up. So that's what I've been putting a lot of, my time into, but also I've become a content creator, bro. I'm out here posting on the socials, you know what I mean? And and understanding too that as I'm doing it, I gotta give at least a little, some bumpers, gotta put some banks along the river and just be like, hey, remember, content fades and symbols remain.
Uh-huh.
It's one thing for me to come through and present myself as this avatar for other people's opinions to be projected upon. Cool. But also, that's not truly where I'm at or who I am. So the edges of myself continue to be unraveled and maybe some parts diminish, but then I also braid them back in too when necessary.
Mm.
Yeah, and that's kind of like, what hit me when you were talking about, you know, not only are we witnessing, but we're being witnessed. And what does that do, to a person? And I feel like, many times when I've come to the edges, of this grief or this sorrow, it's like a portal is opened. It arises in me because it's the indigenous soul mourning, what's been forgotten or severed. So I've learned to bring myself towards the ether webs and the chaos that is, you know, social media. I've been on the internet for a long time though, you know what I mean? I just haven't chosen to move in that direction. And thankfully, no one's called me a bigot or a racist yet. So that I'm grateful. But also too, reminding myself, like, what am I speaking to and why? Can I be the song after the silence of the busyness and the chaos and all the things? So there's some reverence. So that's what I've been working on, bro, is building out the community, focusing on my personal brand, creating a clothing line, New Old Way, and seeing how I can, in some ways, re-indigenize the spaces. Yeah, for people in place.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. Yeah. You've brought up grief a few times,
Yeah.
and your mom's passing, and I just want to offer up, you know, my presence, um, and love really for you and for her for bringing you here, and caretaking you and you know, wiping the dirt off your cheekbones when you came in, and all the love that she gave, for you to be the man that you are today. That has undoubtedly blessed my life and many, 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 many lives. So, I just want to honor her, Kale.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. You know, in many ways, you know, mother is first land, you know, first land. And first living ancestor, you know, for a baby. And for me as a man, you know, as a motherless son now, you know, what am I doing this all for? Like, why? You know, because this way that you and I are speaking on, and that is so familiar to you and I, is not the case. It's not the case in my waking life on the day to day. I don't have this kind of fluid exchange on a regular basis. But I did with my mom.
Yeah.
And I was able to have that with her because she chose to also walk that path with me when she could have said no. And she really wanted to understand it through my eyes. And so I was fortunate enough to have a mother that wanted to help me along, crossing these natural primal thresholds of initiation, rites of passage, and cheering me on and saying, keep going, Kale. You know, don't stop. And so if that's the phrase that I can live on for the rest of my life, so be it. I will keep going. I don't need to question it. I don't need to question, what am I doing? Because I know I felt the love of a mother gone too soon, that she couldn't receive her first grandchild. And that severance, as painful as it is, has been something that I understand as the womb of my own nurturing again, that I'm still connected. And that love and that hurt is going to be with me for the rest of my days to my tomb, from the womb to the tomb. And I hope that the mana, the life force that she's given to me, you know, as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult, as a man now, that I can carry her voice in me and carry her vision, because it's my mother's vision that has shaped me. And it's the vision that she gave to me, whether she knew it or not. So I carry that now. And I will keep going.
Thank you, Kale. Yeah.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah. And that mother's blessings, all she saw you, cared enough to ride alongside with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still is. Got her on the altar
Yeah.
every day before I leave the house, when I come back to the house. Mom.
Yeah.
Mom and grandma and, you know. But yeah, mother's blessings.
Yeah. You know, I'm reminded of something that, Martine has said many times and written about that it's our tears that actually help them cross over to the other side. Yeah, to become an ancestor. Yeah, yeah. And it's like each one of those tears, as I see you now, pieces the memory of her back together in her truest shape. Yeah, yeah. So, thank you, Kale.
Yeah. Thank you for that one, man. It's good.
Yeah, and you got
So yeah, I have a duty, Huh?
you have a duty. That is it.
Yeah, I have a duty
Yeah,
to take care of my mother's granddaughter.
yeah, yeah. So you have a granddaughter. You have a daughter coming on the way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
June.
in June,
Yeah.
early June, late June, mid June,
Early June, first week June. Supposed to be June 3rd.
June 3rd.
So the midwives tell me.
That's what they say. Yeah,
That's what they say.
yeah. Well, man, I don't have. Um, well, I do say I look forward to being an uncle.
Hey.
Yeah,
All right.
and rocking that little one because yeah,
Yeah.
that's my duty as your friend and brother to be there.
Oh.
Um, I was thinking about you this morning, and I was thinking we went down when I was there a couple of winters ago. We went down to a beach, and there was some whales out, and and I was like, man, I gotta go out there and listen to them, And we went out there together and heard them through the water, and it's such a blessing. I mean, it really feels like the song of the whales changes my cells in my body, and it's such a special thing, especially being in Colorado. I mean, that the ocean is an enigma to me in a lot of ways. Um, anyways, you told me, I was thinking about it. You told me the Hawaiian name for whales, and I can't remember it in Hawaiian, but I remember kind of what it means.
Yeah, yeah.
It's something like bringer of the sun, something like this. Did I have it right?
Yeah. It's close, close. It's Koholas, son's chosen.
Sun's chosen. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if you could share a little bit. I remember what you shared with me then. Um, but if you could share a little bit about what does that mean? Sun's chosen. Why that name for a whale that lives in the ocean?
Yeah, right. What a riddle, huh?
Yeah, it's always a riddle, man. Riddles are the best.
Yeah, amazing that like ancestor would say, "Oh, son's chosen," and then it prompts the question even further, like how so? Why? Which is probably the same question that they might have had, which is like upon looking like, um, how often do you see a whale when they come up to the surface? Yeah, like you're not really gonna see them, even though when you submerge yourself into the ocean, you can hear their songs, right? But the song that they're generating, right, comes from the resonance and the vibration of the sun's energy. And they are bringing that life force into the ocean by singing. And they also sing the memory of what was, what is now, what is soon to be. And so their songs are causing a soundscape. That's the ocean. The ocean is a big soundscape.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like our ears aren't necessarily attuned to all of it, but to our relatives in there, they're all part of this symphony, and there's so much sound. And so the whales part of that is to bring the sun's energy into the life of the ocean. And so they also do it physically whenever they, what you call it, shit. The upwelling of nourishment, they're the giant kind of like what we would see is similar to like the what do you call them? Ungulates, on land.
Right.
They do that too, and they bring an upwell of nourishment. So all of that is like it's all plant life that they're doing, and plant life draws in the sun to grow more. So they are the sun's chosen ones, in that way. Significant in like, let's say for us, like when you go out there, it's like I gotta hear them, I gotta know, because there's a memory that comes. They're chanting.
Yeah.
They're telling
Yeah,
stories.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
The power, quiet and steady and connected, is deeper than just what we are able to perceive in our day to day, because we live on the land, so we get to be part of that whenever we hear them, and it's mainly the males that are singers. It's just the males.
Hmm.
Yeah, the males sing. And then they'll even come and they'll be like an escort, for the mama and baby. Because when they come out here to Maui, they're here to birth and mate. They don't eat.
It's
So they're
right.
fasting the whole time.
Yeah,
So they're in their ceremony
yeah.
as well when they come out here. And then they go and journey to, Alaska and Australia and Japan and places like that. So yeah, man.
So the humpback whales that come to Maui, they go to Japan and Australia as well.
Yeah, different pods. They go
Wow,
to different places.
wow.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't know that. I thought it was always Alaska and the Hawaiian Islands.
Yeah, certain pods do. Like my understanding of their migration, which goes back to the nomadic thing we're talking about, right? I'm not too keen on which pods are going where, but I've been told in the rumors
Sure,
that yeah, they travel around.
sure.
Hmm.
Right on, man. Right on.
Yeah, and they're seen as Aumakua, right? The larger collective consciousness of the animal and the plant and the mineral that we bring, as people of this place too, towards our connection with our genealogy. So the hidden meanings are different for each person, depending on if they have whales as part of their ancestry,
Yeah.
right? And that layered meaning of the kauna, that comes. Yeah, and
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. There's just something there's a lot of ways that I've worked with how I define culture, and I'm always
Yeah.
tinkering and playing with it. And you know, one way that I really hear you speaking of, and even speaking of these kind of kinships and relatives that we have with the whole of creation, I think of this particular definition as a culture as a context which life can live.
Yeah.
Like a yogurt culture, or it's like
Yeah.
it's a context of which life lives. And when I hear you speaking of all of the threads of connection and braids that your culture holds to the seen and the unseen, to the land, to the non-human world, it's actually a context of which all of life can live.
Hmm.
And it's beautiful, man, and a necessity,
Hmm.
even if it's us distinguishing between a robin and a flicker, you know,
Yeah.
which are birds that we have in Colorado. Like that, that
Yeah.
creates a braid. That creates a thread. Um, you ever heard of the name Gilbert Walking Bull?
No.
Yeah, so he's passed on now, a Lakota man, and he
Mm.
hung around with John Young and Wilderness Awareness School probably in the 90s. And when he was growing up and the children were taken to schools, the grandparents and elders were like, they hid him. They hid him and passed down all this knowledge to him. And so his understanding of language, and he was a song carrier and of ceremonies and of the old ways, was really intact in him. And he brought it to a lot of
Mm.
people. And I never got to meet Gilbert. But I
Yeah.
heard somewhere through a recording, I think, that he gave in wilderness awareness context, that
Mm.
in the Lakota language, God or creator is Wakantanka, which he
Mm.
said is commonly translated as great mystery, or that big mysterious thing. um, which is beautiful in and of itself. Like, you want to know God, how well can you be in relationship with mystery? Um,
Yeah.
which is one way. But he also said another meaning of Wakantanka was braid or thread. And it's always led me to wonder about, like, wow, is that which is sacred, or that which is holy, or that which is um, godly is the thread of connections that we have. So then what is not? It's only our ability to weave and strengthen our sense of connection. And I love when you said that, it's about connection, not correction. I mean, that's a beautiful one-liner, man. That'll go in my quiver.
Got a few in the pocket.
Yeah, you do, man, and you dish them out generously. Anyway, man, that's all that's been touched in me, and as we wrap up, I'm kind of opening up at the same time, sharing more. So, a little bit of contradiction happening, but yeah.
This is the way.
Yeah. I guess it's my way of saying thank you for sharing about the, the whales. And yeah, I appreciate that, man. Deeply. Yeah.
Yeah, they're still here. They're going to be heading out soon. April.
In April.
It's pretty much, yeah. April is when they start to fully make themselves scarce.
Nice, man. Nice. Well, thanks again, man, for your willingness to be on and share your wisdom and all that, to share your heart, all that's residing in your heart. And yeah, just such a blessing that you are in my life and what you bring to the world. Yeah.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah. And you mentioned it once, but can you just share again where people can find you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
On Instagram, I'm pretty active there. That's just my name, Kaalekahi. You can find me there. I also have my online community, which is called New Old Way. People can find me there. Then also, I do a lot of work, in the coaching space. So it's kind of like a regenerative lifestyle kind of coaching that I do for men that helps them understand all these things that we're talking about as a way that's applicable in their life, right? Because we're talking about modern men, and getting results in the way that you and I are takes a lot of time. So the look now is like, can we be results focused while purpose driven and values aligned? And what does that look like for us now, especially when we want to be grateful men, embodied men, empowered men, and not as like this sense of do more no matter what it takes, but the sense of can we slow down for a moment and really just look at some of the pieces of the tattered edges, of our own weaving and take care of those first. So those are kind of the main three things alongside my nonprofit where I take people out for tours on the ocean and on the land. Yeah. So regenerative tourism as the slogan goes.
Right on. Well, I encourage everybody that's listening to check out Kale's work. Yeah, find out where he is and what he's up to, and listen to his words and what he's offering to people. And yeah, with that, man, grateful to spend this time with you, wander in these beautiful landscapes that we both like to wander. Yeah, brother.
Yeah, my brother. Mahalo, bro. Prayers up. Always health, happiness, and harmony, brother. Mahalo nui.
All right, bro. More soon.